College football's transfer portal pursuit starts right now.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, and we're going to be discussing straightforward the underbelly of college football, which means how all the slimy business really happens, and specifically how the transfer portal quarterback system works. That is really the crux of the show. We'll get into some chat questions that people can ask about any other position, but by accident, I'll admit this up front, I have learned through back channels how they find ways to get players from one school to the other, and how staff members are actually accounted for in certain areas, scouting other teams for their players for the next season, and they're not scouting them for a game. They're scouting them to get them on their team. So let's dive into this. I'll have a few players that I want to use as quarterback examples. I've got some here in Notepad. I've got some that I'll throw up on the page for those of you watching live or later on YouTube, and I will list them off individually as well. Here's the deal. There are people now on the back office staff, name a school, it doesn't matter who it is. Their job, at least in part, is to scout other institutions, ones that you probably know, the prominent programs, guys that want to leave because they're not playing as early as they thought, 4 or 5-star guys, whatever it may be. Productivity still important. So there's some G6 kids, certainly FCS D2, like Trinidad Chambliss was D2, Ferris State. I mean, Ole Miss found a kid at a small school in the state of Michigan. You don't think there are people scouting in the SEC for random players? Yeah, definitely. Yes, they literally have jobs. They have criteria, teams to go through, players or positions. And their job is to find a way to come up with that list. How many of them are part of the process to initiate contact? That's another story. But yes, that is how this works. And it starts now. Any news you can gather from fall camp, whether it's through direct media, meaning published in a newspaper, published anywhere else, hey, this kid's already blown up. Who is this guy? He's an offensive tackle. We need another one of those. Anything you can imagine. And here's how I really kind of accidentally found out about this. A couple of different SEC schools. I asked a coach once about the spring game they had coming up. This is not this year, but the year before. And I said, it's going to be on TV. And he looked at me like, I was standing next to him. He's like, no, I don't want that game on TV. I'm like, what do you mean? He says, well, I don't want anybody looking at our players, especially the guys that are coming up, they're kind of next up, like the first guy off the bench. And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about it. I was just making small talk. And that just kind of got the wheels in motion for me. Not that long after, another SEC coach told me he had to get back to what he was doing. He had to go through his portal stuff for the next season. This was before a season started. I'm like, oh, this was like late July, early August, something like that. And he was talking about he has to go finish his portal work. Look, there's no way around it. The portal is year-round because you're always trying to find more talent. Nobody wants to hear that their school's doing it, but everybody does it. It's just that I didn't know, and again, I found this out by accident based on those two stories and some others I'll leave out, that it is a year-round process to scout other people's rosters, and you can go in to however you want from there. How they get the players, whether it's through, hey, we had a relationship with the dad during the high school process, we know the agent, maybe both, maybe the high school coach. They try to induce them to leave those programs if they seem to be a fit, and that's the bottom line. That's in general. But in particular, I wanted to talk tonight about quarterback. Quarterback is most important. And think about the following programs that are all going to lose a quarterback, more than likely, barring something unforeseen. Darian Mensah at Miami, NFL. Georgia's going to lose Gunnar Stockton. Ohio State might lose Julian Sayin. CJ Carr, I think, will leave Notre Dame. If you want to stay in the Midwest, Penn State's going to lose Rocco Becht. Then if you look around college football, it's still not going to be any different really out west or down south. Oregon's going to lose Dante Moore. I know they got Rayola, but That's assuming that he does everything he's supposed to this offseason. It's not out of the question that Oregon can take another. I doubt it. Jade Maeva will be done. He's a fifth-year senior at the University of Southern California. It's possible that there are a couple other schools out west, like FIDA at Arizona is done. I don't know if Damon Williams is going to leave Washington. He's got more eligibility. He could be a guy that somebody goes after, but he might turn pro if he has a great year. You never know. Down at Texas, Arch probably gone. If Marcel Reed plays well, he's gone. John Mateer's done after this year. We don't know what Texas Tech's situation is. It depends on the guy that got thrown into the fire. If he's not what they want, they're going to be in the portal for a quarterback. There are a lot of teams, in short, they're going to be after quarterback. And, oh, by the way, it's not going to end there. There's going to be some others because guys are going to get hurt, et cetera. So while quarterback is always important, here are 5 guys, and this is among many, that have at least 1 year of eligibility left, and they're probably at a school that's, A, not going to pay top-end money, B, proven, and C, again, this is like their contract year. These are just guys I came up with, and this is in no particular order. But here we go. Devin Dampier at Utah. He was at New Mexico, went to Utah last year. He'll have a couple years left. He's mobile. I think he was like 21-7 TD to interception ratio or something like that. He's pretty good. They weren't great at receiver at Utah last year. They were pretty good. One of their guys left. I'm not sure what he will do. They've got a new staff. Obviously, Kyle Whittingham, Jason Beck, and several other people have left Utah, gone to Michigan. So we're not sure. But if he doesn't end up having a successful season with them in terms of win-loss record, maybe he wants to go play somewhere else. And again, all those schools I just mentioned, some of them are probably going to be like, hey, why not take a look here? Texas Tech or somebody else, who knows? Oklahoma, anybody. It's a possibility. Another guy, and this is what I'm rooting for because he got hurt last year and he was off to a great start, Steve Angeli. He was leading the nation in passing when he got into the game against Clemson and was playing well. They actually won the game despite his injury, but he tore up his Achilles. I expect Angeli to throw it all around the lot. I'm a little concerned about Syracuse's offensive line. I'm not going to lie. But I guarantee you, he's a fourth-year player. He's got 1 more year of eligibility. If I remember right, I could be wrong, or he might have to petition. I'm not sure. But if he's able to come back, he will have a plethora of options because he's very accurate. If you remember back a couple of years ago, he had to come into the game for Notre Dame before he transferred to Syracuse against Penn State. Riley Leonard got banged up right before half, and he led them on their first scoring drive in that game, and they came back and won. Very accurate quarterback, very dependable. The guy that I think will get the most interest out of these programs that's, no offense, not as high up, is a player by the name of Malik Washington. Malik Washington was a 5-star by some. He's from the D.C. area, stayed home to play for the Terrapins, started as a true freshman. He had around 3,000 yards passing as a freshman, and their receiver group was terrible. They dropped more passes than any team in the country last year, statistically, per Pro Football Focus, and it wasn't pretty. But he's been very positive. He was interviewed at Big Ten Media Days, and Malik Washington is the kind of guy you want to be around, and he can spin it. I guarantee you, Penn State, maybe it's Julian Sayin leaves, Ohio State, Miami, schools like that, he will have plenty of overtures. Right now, I would peg him number 1. If I had to pick somebody that's going to get the most teams try to induce him to leave and go into the portal, it would be Malik Washington. He'll have a huge year for the Terrapins. I just about guarantee it. CJ Bailey at NC State, very similar. He will be a junior this fall in Raleigh to play for the NC State Wolfpack. 6'6" guy, he's got a big arm. Same high school program with a bunch of guys, that now play with him, as well as some that, like D'Angelo Pons, that played at Indiana last year in the NFL. And this other guy you might have heard of, Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, loaded Chaminade program down in South Florida. But he's really good too. He will be a junior. I'm sure that Miami, amongst others, will make overtures if he continues his progress. Again, he's a South Florida guy. He put up big numbers last year, 273 of 402, 67.9%, 3,105 yards, 25 scores, 9 picks. NC State's offense should be really good. They get JoJo that comes over from Miami, one of his high school teammates, etc. They're going to throw it around. I'm excited for CJ. He's a good guy. wish him the best. But yeah, he's definitely going to have some overtures. Finally, I want to put it into perspective. The G6 might have the most intriguing guy. I don't know how you grade this because it's not the same level of defenses. But as a redshirt freshman last year, Brad Jackson at Texas State went nuts. He's 6 foot and like 200 pounds, something like that. But 252 at 357, 3,208 yards, 9 yards per attempt, 21-7, touchdown interception. But just as important, he had 869 yards on the ground and 17 scores. He's a big dude that can run, but he had over 3,000 yards passing. Most important thing to know about him is he was consistent and did so in his first year being the guy. That's pretty unusual. If you move him up a level, are you going to definitely get great results? We don't know. But guys that can run it and pass it and have proven production, they're going to have overtures from Lord only knows where. Here's the extra part with Mr. Jackson. G.J. Kinney is the head coach at Texas State. He's on a short list of G6 coaches that most people think probably going to get a P4 job sooner than later. If that's the case, could it be a situation where he goes to another school, possibly, and brings Mr. Jackson with him? It certainly happened a lot. Look at Alex Golish in Auburn this year. They brought Byron Brown from USF up to the Plains to play for the Tigers. This is not an uncommon occurrence. That is something to think about. When we come back, I want to talk about this a little bit broader, then get into the chat and just have some fun. That is next right here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a whole bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, and another for sales. And somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place. Odoo is a platform to manage, grow, and scale your business. The best organizations know that success, it's not just about talent. It's about everyone working towards the same goal, and that's in sports, not just in the business world. And to that end, the programs that are going to do the best in the portal this offseason are doing their homework right now, working towards one common goal, figuring out the positions they need to be successful. Great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo. Try it for free today at odoo.com/locked-on. That's odoo.com/locked-on. Let's talk a little bit about the money factor here. Here are a few of the things that you got to remember. Money matters, and there's situations that come with it. So I want to throw this up on the screen. Those are the 5 quarterbacks again. I just want to talk about this with those in mind. And it's the same ones that I just mentioned to you. But how much money would it take for a guy that's happy at a school to leave? Again, it's Devin Dampier, Steve Angeli, Malik Washington, Brad Jackson, C.J. Bailey that I just mentioned as 5 guys. But there are plenty of others too. How much money would it take? Sometimes there's a number you didn't even expect somebody would reach. So before you him and haw, get mad because either a player left your favorite program or just in general where this is at, ask yourself the following question. If you were 20 years old and somebody offered you $3 million to go do something, how many things would you have said no? What if it's 4 or 5 million? Pretty hard to turn that down while getting a free education and playing big-time college football to boot. So, again, these are just some of the schools that are going to be in the market, most likely, after this season, barring something unforeseen, or at least they might look. You never know. Miami has allegedly said they're not going to be in the portal, but for a quarterback. But Mensa is going to be gone after this year. That's most likely. Looking at the situation, it's not out of the question that either C.J. Carr and or Julian Sands gone from Notre Dame and Ohio State. Rocco Becht is done at Penn State. USC is going to lose Jaden Maeva. I think there's the replacement already in Eugene, but Dante Moore will be gone. Arch probably gone from Texas. And then you got John Mateer at Oklahoma. These are a lot of schools that have cash. When you have programs like that, they're at least considering the option it's going to not just drive the price up, it could make it exponential. If you get 4 or 5 of those that are after 2 or 3 players, man, it could get crazy. So just keep that in mind. Let's jump into the chat and have a little fun tonight. Salty, you are busier than normal. Smitty, did my awards fail me or was there no show last Thursday? In case people didn't know, I had high school football to go see, so I canceled the show. That's all that was, brother. No worries. Salty says, I see 2 recent trends combining to create a new hazard for programs. The portal and the expectation to win immediately. If a head coach leaves or is fired, the program has players who will leave en masse. Unfortunately, Salty is not wrong on that, and I don't think that's going to change. Indiana winning the national title probably didn't help that trend. The way the narrative around portal quarterbacks' utility is immediately maximizing the talents of all the other skill players is going. Malik Washington is almost being pulled into the portal. I would agree with that. I think he will be really coming after the right number of schools. But what is the role of the agents in creating a national narrative for a quarterback they represent in hopes of driving a high portal price? Malik is currently the best quarterback for a school you haven't seen. I really don't know. Like, I'm sure there are people trying to get articles written and stuff. I have guys all the time try to get me to do stuff to get their players looked at and all that. But I don't write nationally anymore. I don't like writing, to be honest with you. I'd imagine there's some backwater efforts to do that, though. How do a quarterback's agent go about the business of raising a quarterback's national profile in hopes of setting a high portal price? Is it through a scratch my back media connections? Do AI bots do flood the chats? Again, I really don't know, but media would be my first guess, probably. As an aside comment, if AI bots are being used to flood team chats, the AI would have to build a persona with a team's chat membership characteristics. I'd like to see the AI perceptions of team chats. What else we got here? With poachers building aggressive NIL offers toward top quarterbacks into the portal, will programs have to build matching offers to retain their quarterbacks? This is a case by case, but this is the most important question so far tonight. Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. If that quarterback is very happy with his quarterback coach, thinks his trajectory is to the NFL, you're probably okay. But again, it comes down to the number. If you're making $2 million where you're at and you're offered $4 million, that's a lot of money. Are you going to leave? I mean, you wouldn't at least think about it? Michigan lured Underwood away from LSU by offering bigger and bigger NIL deals until he could no longer say no. If a program wants another program's quarterback and is willing to overspend, will it happen? More often than not. The key word there is you said overspend. Overspend. It reminds me of the exchange in Heaven Can Wait. What underhanded, slimy trick did the devil use to try to get to sell him the NFL Rams? He offered me 20 times what the team is worth. That bastard. That's a great line. Salty, no wonder media access to spring and fall camps is so restricted these days. I think that's part of it. People don't want their young players being looked at. That's my guess. For programs planning to fire their head coach, does a candidate head coach who can bring in an elite quarterback and skill players with him jump to the head of the line? Yes. Because you already said it. Nobody wants to wait to win. Nobody does. I mean, that's just reality. Like, does anybody know a fan base that's patient? I don't. Name one. Where's it at? Let me give you a couple scenarios. And again, thanks to Salty for the questions. And he just brought up the point. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and one of the individuals who covered a team said, you know, this head coach is popular, blah, 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 but they don't really give a lot of access, and he's more old school, more paranoid. I kind of brushed it off. I'm like, a lot of coaches are paranoid. But what Salty is talking about right here is probably part of the dilemma. Because if you're preparing to go steal players from said team, which teams, you're worried that somebody else is doing it to you, because they probably are. Especially if you're one of those blue bloods like a Texas or, you know, a Georgia or something. You know, people are looking at your rosters. They're not going to allow diddly out of their practice. You're only going to get stuff out of the games, and you're probably only going to see those key reserves at the end of blowouts. They don't want to see a young and up-and-coming player working with the ones in practice delivered to the media, which then sends it out through the airwaves, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X, and Lord only knows how many other outlets. Emails get sent, you name it. And then boom, what do you know? Somebody's knocking at your guy's door, or he's sending them an inbox, contacted mom, whatever it may be. And it's pretty rough. So I don't think there's a lot you can really do about that stuff, but it is something that happens a lot. And I wanted people to realize that, like, literally, as I noted at the very beginning, I'll end it right here with this. The back office staffs at a lot of these different schools now, this is part of the deal. There are people that are literally scouting other teams the entire season and the offseason to find portal players the next time it opens. Any way they can. Now, again, I'm not going to say who is or isn't using those people directly to contact, but I don't know how that works. I've never asked. But it's the scouting. Like, their job is to scout other teams for the portal before they even announce. Don't you find that a little odd? There's probably some inducements going on at a lot of different schools. But thank you, folks, very much for checking out the Portal Podcast on a Sunday night. I know there's a bunch of stuff going on. There's some other questions in here I missed. Well, actually, you know what? There is one right here. I'm salty. I'll pull it. This is something I need to talk about this week. We're just going to talk about games all week because we're finally to the week of games. NC State at Virginia. NC State has another best quarterback in the school you don't watch, and Virginia caught lightning in a bottle last year. I'm interested to see the whole narrative still has traction. I don't know what's going to happen in Virginia. They're one of the surprise teams possibly again this year. They got Bo Perbula, I believe it is. It's starting at quarterback. Do I have a lot of faith in him? Faith is probably strong, but that's one of the games that I want to talk about. I've also got Jarvis from Locked On Georgia Tech I'm going to be doing a crossover with on Monday afternoon. Tennessee, Georgia Tech is one of the better early games. I want to talk about that one a little bit. I think that'll be a good game. And I'm sure there's probably some others. And by the way, Salty brought this one up. This is hilarious. North Carolina, TCU, the game is billed as the Aer Lingus Classic, and anything that sounds like it's named after a sexual maneuver is okay by me. North Carolina, TCU are two will they get it done teams. Carolina I have no faith in. TCU lost Hoover to Indiana. But I think TCU's got a pretty easy schedule. If they beat North Carolina like I expect them to, that could be a situation where TCU is a little bit of a surprise. They might go to a decent bowl. Might even be kind of a super dark horse in the Big 12. But in that league, is there ever anything other than surprise? The Big 12 is always weird about that stuff. But anyway, I appreciate it to everybody that stopped in once again here to the Portal Podcast. I think we're going to see a massive portal haul in January. The quarterback will be the wildest year yet, and I don't think it'll be close. So be ready for that. Don't be surprised. And again, these offices in the back, they're checking out players for every school, every game. That's part of the deal. Thank you again for checking out the Portal Podcast. We will see you tomorrow starting previews. We will see you again then.